Hello and welcome to the first session of 2024. Now, 2023 was an amazing year for our industry, and I can assure you 2024 is just going to be mind blowing. There is no doubt that wellness is here and it is here to stay. And this is our time for wellness leaders to actually ride that wave. And today I'd like to talk about another subject that is very, very dear to me. And that is why less than 1% of wellness leaders in hotels ever become hotel general manager. Now, this is something I have thought a lot about in the last 10 years, that we wellness leaders, we are in the hotel. We're an important part of that hotel. Yet we are never given access to get that general manager position. Now, there are two arguments here. One could say that wellness is a specialist role. Wellness people really want to continue in their area of specialization. And that's a fair count. I mean, rarely would you see a chef, an executive chef, become a general manager. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I don't see that very often. And we could argue that a therapist or a head therapist does not necessarily, or a visiting practitioner, want to become a hotel general manager, granted. But there is also a very high percentage of leaders who actually want to manage businesses. And in an era where wellness, I mean, every industry out there, every company out there is blowing that wellness horn, they will come a point where a hotelier cannot not know about wellness in some shape, way, or form. So, if that is the case, then why are less than 1% of wellness leaders ever given access to that hotel general manager position? Now, while I was preparing for today's session, I was thinking about, I can't always put all the fault on the hotelier colleagues. It's not their fault. We are co creators of the situation. And if we look at how the wellness industry has been set up, now the word is wellness. Before, it had many different modalities, it had spa, it had fitness. Now everything comes under the same kind of generic term, wellness. Now, if we look at the trajectory of most wellness leaders, they have either come in from the spa area, so attendant, receptionist, spa therapist, and they've worked up their ranks to the role of director of wellness, or you're a visiting practitioner, have entered in and worked up the ranks, or you've coming in from the health club or wellness or fitness industry, and you've worked your way up to the ranks to be that wellness leader. But really, when you reach wellness leader, that is where 80% of leaders stop. They really can't. There are very few jobs and opportunities available. That's the highest. That is where our crystal ceiling has been set by industry. Now, if you are ambitious and you want more, and you have not been given the opportunity in your hotel or in your brand to actually grow beyond director of wellness, then you have to branch out or go to another industry where you're actually valued, where your expertise is valued, and where you can actually grow and have an impact. And that has happened to several of my fellow wellness leaders when we were working up their ranks. The vast majority of them have had to branch out. Now, admittedly, things have been they've done incredibly well for having done so. That said, it doesn't mean that at one point some of these people did not want to go further up. And if we look at the 20% that actually go above the wellness director or manager or leader position within a property, the next step up is either a cluster role. So you're overseeing a few properties in the same region or nearby. And that also, if you look at what that wellness leader is doing, is essentially saving the salary of more qualified leaders in the other wellness facilities that perhaps are either too small, do not warrant a full-blown spa manager or spa director or a wellness leader. And that's what we normally see happening in these cluster roles. So they're justified that wellness director or wellness manager wage, but they're also given the responsibility of seeing the more technical aspect of the other spouse. And rarely are they paid more or are they given that recognition? And even less so, do they have the impact or the decision making power over the other properties? It's always the GM or the regional person who takes that ultimate responsibility. So we have these wellness leaders who have a title, a cluster or regional title, but it's essentially purely decorative. And if in their spa things get entertaining, in their wellness facilities they're needed, what takes second place is definitely the regional responsibilities. They will always be held accountable to their actual property. Now, it kind of makes sense because you also see that with the GM positions, but ultimately, they do not get paid more, wellness leaders, to take on a cluster or a regional role. And from these 20% who actually go above that wellness leader of one property, you have around 1% that actually becomes a global director of wellness, of spa, or well being. Now, I assure you, that 1%, once they get that much coveted global position, they're unlikely to move from there. They're very unlikely. They're going to stay in the position for as long as they can because essentially they have reached the highest position that we know is available to wellness leaders. And if you are incredibly smart and incredibly lucky, you actually get a vice president role. Now, those roles are one in a history, once in a lifetime opportunity that we have seen in our industry. And now, if we also look at how many of the wellness leaders have actually been given the opportunity or being looked in a respectful way to actually be trained to become a hotel general manager, that percentage is probably again less than 1%. Now, dare I say, I would like to see out of all these wellness leaders who actually became a hotel general manager or have held a vice president role of well being, dare I say, how many are female? And the irony of it all is that, our industry is a female heavy industry. So when I was looking at why is it that we don't have the same opportunities as our other hotelier and hospitality colleagues to go for that generalist role. Today and tomorrow's leader needs to have those soft skills that are innate to wellness leaders. And yet we do not have available to us that opportunity. It's just not available. And it's sad to see that wellness leaders, we have the glass ceiling set so low. And that's not only hospitality's fault. We wellness professionals are co creators of this reality. And if we are to make the impact we really want to make, and if we are if we really want to show the world what wellness can do, something needs to change. And I would love to know what each of you thinks. I'm just curious to know, to understand, why is it that our wellness leaders just don't have available the career and growth opportunities as our fellow hospitality colleagues? When we work as hard, we are part of that vision, we're all rowing towards that same direction, and we're still not given the same opportunities. And I can't help but think that there's something that we wellness leaders aren't doing right, or we need to change something. Because as I always say, nothing changes if nothing changes. And for those of you who actually want to go and secure that genuine seat at the hotel's big table. That means not just being part of an executive committee, but also having a voice that is heard, where you are actually put on the map for growth and development, that you are given the same opportunities as your fellow hospitality colleagues, other leaders in hospitality, director of rooms, director of food and beverage, all those leaders. If you want the same opportunities, then I strongly recommend you enroll to my free mini course, From Neglected to Respected. There's some insights you will gain that will help you empower yourself to make the impact you want. And on that wonderful note, I wish you all a beautiful day ahead.